The sun was below the horizon, casting the shadow of after 12 and trock on the kitchen where the aroma of roast turkey mingled with that of fresh pie. I stood stirring a pot of sauce, feeling my heart beat in anticipation. For me, Thanksgiving has always been a family time, but this year was different. There was an unspoken tension in the air, visible in the tight smiles exchanged between my parents. My parents were busy, oblivious to the storm rumbling inside me. They were excited by their new lives, their plans to retire and finally be freed from my presence. I felt it. Their enthusiasm twisted my stomach like a knife. "Joel, can you set the table?" My mother called me from the dining room. I nodded, forcing a smile as I put the ladle down. My hands were shaking slightly. I was on edge, not knowing why. It may be the weight of their impending announcement, the one they had suggested without ever really revealing. In arranging the cutlery, I caught snippets of their conversation. One could no longer support it. My father's voice was low but firm. He must learn to fend for himself. My heart sank. I knew what he meant. He was finally cutting off my food. That thought chilled my blood. The dinner started with laughter and the tinkling of glasses, but I felt detached from the ambient heat. My parents talked about retirement and travel while I pretended laughing when I had to nod to myself. A storm was brewing at dessert time. My mother's expression changed. Joel began with hesitation. "There's something of which to discuss," she concluded. My pulse surged, dreading the impending bombshell. Before it could unfold, Lisa intervened, stopping my father. "Not now. Let's enjoy this moment." From that moment, together, but I could see in their eyes the fear of what lay ahead. I excused myself on the pretext of needing fresh air and went out into the cool of the night. The stars twinkled like distant eyes, watching my every move. My mind raced as I walked the 100 steps on the porch, my thoughts drifting into darkness. When I got back inside, the atmosphere had completely changed. My parents weren't smiling anymore. They were showing expressions of concern, but they were eating away at something else. Disappointment, fear. "Joel," my mother continued, her voice slightly trembling. "We decided," but before she finished, something happened. Years of inadequacy and dependency overwhelmed me like a tidal wave of emotion. "That's enough," I shouted. They both jumped in shock. "You think you can just abandon me after all this?" Their faces went ashen, realizing I wasn't merely angry anymore. I was a threat. After dinner, while clearing the table, I slipped into my room unnoticed. Shadows danced on the walls when I took out my notebook, the book of premeditation. Every page detailed my plan to take knife, club, bleach, everything necessary to erase them from existence. Returning to the kitchen, adrenaline coursed through my veins. My heart was beating like a war drum. Approaching my father from behind, he was distracted, humming softly as he did the dishes. "Dad," I whispered, making him turn, confusion flickering across his face. A moment of bewilderment shadowed his features. With a rapid, decisive motion, I acted. I grabbed it, knife, and plunged it into his back. The world is gone silent. Time seemed to freeze as he gasped in utter disbelief, asking, "What exactly are you doing right now?" Had he croaked, the shock invading his eyes? I pulled out the knife, then hit the owl, again 42 times. Total, each blow carried weight, built by years of pent-up resentment. Just as I was finishing, my mother stepped in, her horrified scream cutting through the suffocating air like a sharp blade. Her pleas, "Joel, stop this madness," only stirred my wrath further. My vision blurred, emotions surged. My only goal, to ensure eternal silence for them both. She fought as fiercely as one could in such a situation. Her heart, overflowing with love for him, gave her unmatched strength. I knew she loved me too, but that didn't stop the chaos from unraveling in what once was a sanctuary of peace. Together they fell, crumbling like soulless and limp marinades. At this time, instant I realized what I had done. Like an icy shower, I dragged their bodies into the bathroom where everything was ready. Plastic bins of corrosive products awaited the rest. Like beasts, hungry by cutting them piece by piece, relief swept over me. It was liberation. I let the rest of them dissolve and took refuge in my room, fleeing the horror. The house seemed different. Now she was mine alone. I looked out the window at the world waking up outside. A smile crossed my face as I realized that no one would ever know what happened here. Not today, not ever. Days passed before we noticed their absence. Days of paranoia and guilt gnawing at me like rats in a cage. When the police finally arrived, after my mother's colleagues had reported her missing, I panicked. They found everything. A pot on the fire with the remains of his head, body parts in acid, notes detailing my plans scattered like macabre confetti as they uncovered every horrifying detail. I thought only of my lost freedom and how everything had so quickly descended into chaos. Thanksgiving will never be a holiday for me again. It is now engraved in the blood. A reminder of what happens when love turns to horror. This story is inspired by a horrific incident that occurred on November 26, 2016. Joel Jr., then 28 years old. She was living off her parents' hooks when they decided to cut food while preparing for retirement. The couple had just sold their home and were planning to move to a more affordable home. This decision provoked a violent reaction from their son, who felt he was entitled to their support and had an important motive: a $500,000 life insurance policy that would be paid out if both parents died. The murders took place in their Tennessee home, where Joel Jr. meticulously planned the horrific acts that followed at dawn. When police arrived, he was later convicted and sentenced to life in prison. He was handsome, seductive, breathtaking, exactly everything I had ever dreamed of. Far from the place that had caused me so much pain, a tall blonde man with eyes as blue as the sky, I was completely captivated by his charisma and promises of a bright future. He was a charming and kind man, fascinated by my Egyptian origins. He helped me a lot in my career. I managed to blossom and become the great Omaima the Pharaoh with my exotic outfits. It was Bill's idea. He said it would attract more attention. After each night we would always eat burgers together. What I loved about this country was its wild and free side, colorful parties, extravagant people. I loved it all. I was living the American dream. Bill wanted a more simple and cultural place. I was joking, saying, "Okay, but I'll only eat once a day when we get married." Everything was amazing. I was a famous woman known as the Great Pharaoh, and I was respected. I hated that title. I just wanted to serve my beloved, the one who had brought me here one day. Tired of being called that, I wanted change. I contacted a great stylist who created a beautiful outfit in very fashionable thin fabric. I loved him, and I showed him skillful, but do you know what he did? He laughed at first, but when he saw that I was serious, he got angry and yelled at me. I've never seen him like this before. He hated seeing me in that outfit. He thought it vulgar. When I insisted that he was revolutionary, he hit me, tore my outfit, and told me that it was my natural state. I understood that Bill was obsessed with Egyptian culture. Over time, I discovered he wanted a relic instead of a wife, compelling me to wear traditional attire while enduring public scorn. On it, if I dare, I would put anything, even American, at home, and reprimanded me for any attempt to integrate into my new country. He didn't even know the real culture, just what he had been shown thousands of years ago. He wanted me to be more Egyptian than ever, and any deviation was punished by yelling or worse. I needed an escape. We were always invited to parties, but they refused to go. With Thanksgiving approaching, I wanted to throw a party and invite my friends and Bill's co-workers. I didn't think he'd mind. I started to organize everything in secret. I knew he would be furious when he found out. But I preferred it to be in front of his friends so they could drink with them and have fun. I didn't care if they beat me afterwards. I was determined to take back control of my life. I bought everything I needed to make several traditional dishes, turkey, salads, side dishes, everything. I wanted it to be perfect, but I was too obvious. When he arrived, he saw the dishes arranged, the large table and the smell coming from the kitchen. His face revealed a deep connection to his childhood, a familiar smell and a date he clearly recognized. You know why that smell brought him back to his childhood? His eyes wide. His hollow sockets and receding hairline were more visible than ever, with bald, serene areas. I've never seen him like this before. He asked me what I was doing, and terrified, I tried to tell him it was just a small event. Ma, it exploded. He came over and slammed my head against the kitchen counter, and I saw blood coming up. He had never gone this far before. He hit me several times. He kicked me in the stomach, and when I fell, he kept hitting me in the face and stomach. Then he whipped me with his belt while I screamed to stop, begging him not to hurt me. Finally, he grabbed me by the collar of my shirt and told me something I'll never forget. You'll never be an American. You'll always be a foreigner there. Anger and the fear took hold, and I instinctively grabbed the nearest knife without further thought. I stabbed him in the chest twice until his body stopped moving. It was an instinctive act. When I realized the floor was covered in blood and I was on my knees. Later, I put on my makeup and put on a dress bought for the occasion. Simple, long, and comfortable. I felt so good, so free. The guests arrived one by one and everyone was impressed. They had never seen me like this, and they all praised me for being so brave and daring to make a difference. I felt great serving everyone with my silver trays closed to keep food hot. Everything was perfect. The sides, the cutlery, I paid attention to every detail, and finally the main course. Everyone enjoyed it, enjoyed what I had prepared. I had never cooked American before, but they all complimented me. The salad, the puree, the good wine, the turkey and the meat, everything was delicious. While everyone was having fun, I decided to say a few words. I know it's done before, but I didn't know. It was my first time, I said. Everyone laughed. Bill hated this part. He hated what it stood for. Everyone laughed because they knew it was true. He hated everything related to it. Then I revealed what was hidden under the sealed center tray. Oh, my dear Bill, here you are, truly united with the traditions, I said, revealing his head in the center of the table, the guests having already eaten part of him. Now Bill is in all of you, and I think you will finally understand the importance of traditions. Everyone started screaming in terror. Running away as fast as possible. It was a panic scene, but I didn't care because I felt euphoric, so happy and so free. In 1991, Horrifying Nelson, a 23-year-old Egyptian model, brutally murdered her 56-year-old husband Bill Nelson at their home in Costa Mesa, California on Thanksgiving Day. Omaima stabbed him several times and then beat him to death with an iron. After his death, she dismembered his body, cooked parts, and reportedly ate his ribs with barbecue sauce. Omaima claims to have killed him in self-defense, citing years of physical and sexual abuse by Bill, who allegedly raped her on the morning of the murder. But the prosecution argued that Omaima was a con artist who used sex to manipulate and steal from men after a disturbing trial including testimony about cannibalism. She was convicted of second-degree murder in 1993 and sentenced to 27 years in prison. Although Maima denied eating her husband, her actions have captured public attention with comparisons to figures like Hannibal Lecter. It was Thanksgiving Eve. I should have been excited preparing the party, but something was wrong. Gilberto, my husband, have been acting strange lately. He spent hours locked in his office on his cell phone. Maybe it was just stress. Work? He was a cop after all, but deep down I knew something was wrong, and the man I loved was a monster in disguise that day. While vacuuming, I saw his cell phone on the table. The screen was on, and Gilberto was nowhere to be found. I shouldn't have looked, but something made me do. I stared at the screen, my heart beating faster every second. My husband was seeing someone else. Short of breath, I went through his conversation. There were many messages, but it was nothing I imagined. Gilberto was not deceiving me. I would have preferred I read one and then another. Words, it didn't make sense at first. Roast her slowly, cook her alive. Then I saw the names of the women we knew. I was sick. I wanted to look away. But impossible. The things he was describing, what he would do to them. He was planning to kidnap these women. He was talking about eating them like a Thanksgiving meal. My whole body froze. It was my husband, the man I had married, the one who kissed our daughter every night. My heart was racing. I was dizzy, ready to faint. I discovered. That's when I heard those footsteps upstairs. My blood froze. He was coming down. I slammed the computer and shoved it in the closet just before Gilberto arrived. He smiled at me full of affection as if everything was normal, but his eyes were different, darker, colder. "Everything is fine, my love?" He asked so naturally that I thought I was hallucinating, but I knew I had seen it all. I forced a smile. "Yes, I'm just cleaning." My voice was shaking. He stared at me for a long time as if he was waiting for something. Then he turned and went into the kitchen. I wanted to screaming to flee, but I couldn't. I was trapped in my home with a man I no longer recognized. My husband planned to kill and eat people who were his friends. That night, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw these messages, these detailed plans that had made him. The next morning, Thanksgiving, Gilberto was as usual, smiling, laughing, playing with our daughter, but I couldn't look at it without getting nauseous. He was a monster hiding behind a police uniform, pretending to be a loving father. I watched him carefully all day. Each of these gestures seemed calculated and deliberate, as if he were wearing a mask. But when our friends arrived for dinner, an end shone in his eyes. I'm blind for never having noticed it. Before, I wanted to scream, to warn our friends. I couldn't shake the feeling that they were in danger. Sitting a few feet from the man who had fantasized about eating them over the course of the evening, I couldn't take it anymore. The tension in me was unbearable. I apologized and went upstairs, locking myself in the bathroom. My hands were shaking when I picked up the phone and called the police. What to say in such a situation? How do you explain to them that your husband is a cop, plotting to kidnap and eat people? But I had to do it for my daughter, for myself, for all the women who might be on his twisted menu. When they came for him, it was like a nightmare come true. Sirens were wailing, lights were flashing. And Gilberto was taken from our house in handcuffs. He looked at me with such venom as if I had betrayed him, but I wasn't the one who had his thoughts. Sick and twisted, it was him. I'll never, never, never forgive you. I thought I felt relief, but I felt only deep anguish. The man I had married, the father of my child, was capable of things I couldn't even fathom. He was charged with conspiracy, kidnapping with plans to kill and eat women. They called him the cannibal cop. I saved those women, damn it, I saved myself, but which one? Prize my life, my family, everything was blown to pieces. Thanksgiving will never be the same. This story is based on the true case of Gilberto Valley. Cannibal cop arrested in 2012 for plotting to kidnap and eat women. His wife discovered his disturbing plans online and reported him to authorities, leading to his arrest. Valley was accused of conspiracy to kidnap and released in 2014. Gilberto lost custody of his daughter.